So guys, we've got breaking news. It seems that Donald Trump's trade war is deemed illegal. That's about today's video. These are the headlines. Trump tariffs ruled illegal by federal judicial panel. And he's been getting sued every which way from Sunday. And this is a massive blow. I mean, we've already know that Trump is a lame president. Now he's effectively a lame duck president. And this is his major sort of policy, attacking the world with this trade war. Again, now deemed illegal. I want to read through the details of this. Breaking right now. Let's check this out. The U.S. Court of International Trade said the president had overstepped his authority under the federal emergencies power law he invoked. And if you guys remember, he has to basically tell everyone we're under attack. This is a national emergency. I can take all of these powers and do whatever the heck that I want. There's been moves in Congress already to stop him, and he's got lawsuits against him, and now the court is against him. I'm actually really curious how, I mean, this is just breaking just like about an hour ago. I'm curious how Trump is going to respond to this stuff. This is what we got to read through this. It's, like I said, it's breaking right now. A panel of federal judges on Wednesday blocked President Trump from imposing some of his steepest tariffs on China and other U.S. trading partners, finding in two cases that he vastly overstepped his ability to impose those expansive duties under the federal law. Basically, if you've been following this story, you'll know this. Trump has been testing the limits of what he can and cannot do as president, basically trying to do everything. What his people always say is like, we're the executive branch, we can, do anything that we want, basically. And the Congress has actually been pretty silent, but the courts have been the ones who have really stepping up here. The ruling by the U.S. Court of International Trade delivered an early yet significant setback to Mr. Trump in his campaign to strike a series of agreements that reorient the nation's trade and relationships, setting up a legal fight that could soon reach the Supreme Court. Now that's going to be an interesting one, right? So, generally speaking, the Supreme Court, ruled Trump to be immune. They, have been ruling in his favor because a lot of these people are appointed by him. But this particular one, we're going to see how this comes out. Already this is a massive blow to him, and that's why I said we got to go through the details of this. It says, the case is centered on the president's use of a 1977 federal economic emergency law to issue many of his steep duties, including some of his tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China. So he has to basically say, hey guys, all this fentanyl is coming in. This is a major threat to the nation's national security. Or Trump will have to say, hey guys, they have certain national security industries that we need to protect in America. So this is sort of why he constantly uses the language that he does, right? He basically has to say the way that trade is set up now, it's an attack on America. But the courts are, saying otherwise. So it's here. Says his tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China, and his reciprocal rates on much of the rest of the world, which Mr. Trump announced and then suspended in April. It's actually hard to keep track of this stuff because he keeps, going back and forth, and we've been calling it the taco trade, right? Trump always chickens out. The law does not specify tariffs as a tool available to the president to protect the United States from economic threats. Okay, but Mr. Trump has invoked its powers anyway, right? So it's like the law says that you don't have this power. Trump's like, well, I'm doing it anyway. And this is where it could end up in the Supreme Court. There's a lot of things that may end up in the Supreme Court under Trump, chances are. Citing a need to take drastic action in response, is why Trump was saying it, to a wide variety of urgent matters, including the flow of fentanyl in the United States, for example, and the country's persistent trade deficit with much of the world. And the trade deficit one, like, how could you claim that is a national threat? If you guys understand this thing, and a lot of all the stuff that Trump's been talking about is frankly off the wall. We'd be like, okay, we buy more stuff from another country than they buy from us, right? And they're dishonest about the numbers. They'll include like countries' VATs into these calculations. They'll talk about currency manipulation, which is actually quite interesting as well. You'll also be talking about like if we say buy more from another country in goods, but then not necessarily include the numbers on services that we send to other countries. I mean, everything that Trump has done, I'm sure you guys know this already, but just reiterating it, is dishonest, right? And so this is where like it reminds me of the claiming that Biden cheated, all that stuff, right, or whatever. And Trump goes to every single court all over, and it's just like keeps losing and losing and losing. And that's something I always tell you guys about this stuff is, hey, we can have different opinions, sure. But when it comes to court, hey, present your evidence, tell it to a judge, right? Come and testify to Congress, and your words are empty unless you can prove it there. And that's sort of what's coming up with Trump here. I mean, he's basically rolling the dice and trying to expand his power and coming up bupkis. What do you got here? So it says, in two separate lawsuits, a group of businesses and a coalition of state officials argued that Mr. Trump's strategy had overstepped authorities of his office, resulting in a global trade war that had saddled them with steep financial losses. The Court of International Trade agreed, okay, finding a single ruling that the law, quote, does not authorize the president to use the emergency powers law to issue tariffs. Interesting, okay. White House spokesman, what do we got here? Kush Desai, White House spokesman, sharply rebuked the court for its ruling, saying in a statement that unfair trade relationships decimated American communities, left workers behind, and weakened our defense industrial base. Facts that court did not dispute. Okay. So this is interesting, right? So oftentimes in the law, right, if the law is on your side, you argue the law. If the facts are on your side, you argue the facts. If neither are on your side, right, you just yell and scream and get angry as hell. So I actually do want to talk about this one here, just this statement. Unfair trade relationships decimate American communities. The problem with a lot of this premise is that it was American companies who's like, you know what, I want to go find effectively cheaper workers overseas. That's one thing. Another thing is automation, right? Something that obviously the Trump people don't want to talk about because it's easier to sell the story that China stole your jobs, right? That's the story they wanted to sell you. So it is true, some jobs have moved overseas. I want to say that is true. But a lot of jobs that existed in the past just don't exist anymore because of automation, or they've been transformed where you just don't need as many people. So a lot of this premise is always touchy to talk about because I completely understand, guys. If you're, feel like that you agree with this Trump rhetoric, you're like, wow, China took our jobs and Trump said so. But this is where I want to be honest with you guys about this stuff. It is true. If an American company decides to move a job somewhere else that could have been done by an American worker, it's true that they've decided to find a cheap worker. And I think, for example, or you could say more inexpensive worker, I know these are sensitive topics, but, for example, say call centers, a lot of call centers. I don't even know if we do call centers in the USA, to be honest. And if anyone has any friends who do these kind of things, because, oftentimes, Americans complain that call centers are overseas. I mean, it's just a reality. They are. And, part of, all this sort of situation is that the economy has transformed than what it used to be. I am curious, though, how they're going to fight this one. Okay, here's a quote here. It is not for unelected judges to decide how to properly address a national emergency. Wow, okay. So that's the process that's going to go with. Every level of executive power to address this crisis, okay? It was not clear precisely when and how the tariff collections would grind to a halt. Oh, right, because when the court steps in, like, is Trump going to keep doing what they're doing? Are they still going to just keep getting that tariff money? This is where it goes to Supreme Court, probably. Depending on Trump's actions. So, in a sense, the ball's in Trump's court here. The decision gave the executive branch up to 10 days to complete the bureaucratic process of halting them. Okay, so we had a 10-day fight on our hands here. Shortly after the ruling, the Justice Department told the court that it planned to file an appeal, right? And they have a right to do that. So a lot of this, again, is resting on how much power are we going to let Trump have. Okay, lawyers for the Justice Department had staunchly defended the legality of Mr. Trump's strategy, telling the court repeatedly they had no right to review the president's action. That's kind of a... I mean, how does that make any sense, right? So the Trump's DOJ is like, well, you can't review Trump's orders. Like that's just... that part I completely just rebuke for, don't listen to the Trump people on that one. The stance that discomfited the bipartisan panel of 3 jurists multiple times over weeks of arguments. The tensions arose repeatedly last Wednesday when a coalition of 12 states led by Oregon, wow, hey, that's my home state, so go Oregon, 12 states led by Oregon asked the court to issue a permanent injunction that would halt Mr. Trump's tariffs. Okay, it was a quote here. The president identified the emergency and he decided to means to address that emergency, right? So that's why, again, the president's argument is that this is a national emergency, and it'll be interesting if the Supreme Court. But the thing is, though, for the Supreme Court to come in and basically define what is or is not a national emergency would have massive repercussions for presidential power going forward. Other things that we're concerned about, and this is just happened in Korea actually, would be the martial law situation. You can find my old videos on that, but the basic gist is that um, Korean President Yoon made all of this allegations, basically conspiracy kind of stuff. Oh, the other party is all controlled by China. It's basically what it ended up being, and therefore I have to call in the military, or the other party cheated on the elections, therefore I have to call in the military and take over the election office, right? And basically these phantom, you know, how can I say, attacks on national security is sort of what Yoon in Korea had made, and so therefore called martial law. Trump would probably do the similar kind of thing. He could just make up any sort of like, oh, the fentanyl's call coming from, X place, and therefore I need to, do these massive things to protect the country. It's an emergency, right? Therefore, it's like war act kind of stuff, or all of these people are against me, therefore I have to imprison them, this sort of thing. That's sort of why you've been seeing these sort of arrests on the street. I mean, a lot of stuff that we're happening right now is basically testing the limits of the executive branch. That's why this is actually a really important ruling. So that these next 10 days are extremely important. So let's read a little bit more here. The president identified the emergency, and he decided to the means to address that emergency. So that's coming from the Justice Department. He added the goal had been to, quote, bring our trading partners to the table and create political leverage for possible deal making. Boy, it may be a very dandy plan, but it has to meet the statute. Judge Jane A. Rastani. Okay. We also got this. This is actually interesting. Musk says he's leaving the special government employee. That's what I'm saying. I think Trump's whole world is falling apart here. This is from Musk. As my scheduled time as special government employee comes to an end, I would like to thank President at real Donald Trump for an opportunity to reduce wasteful spending. The DOGE mission will strengthen over time as it becomes a way through government life. So you're losing in the courts for Trump. Elon Musk is leaving you. The actual ruling here, I have it right here from the courts. The conclusion entitles plaintiffs to the judgment as a matter of law. As the court further finds no genuine dispute as any material facts, summary judgment will enter against the United States. The challenged tariffs will be vacated and their operation permanently enjoined. And then we got that 10-day thing here. That's the latest. I'm sure more is going to come out with probably the next couple of days, and then we're going to hear more from Trump. I'm sure he's going to whine and argue about tariffs, etc. If this escalates, I just want to tell you the possibility. Will Trump start, and Musk start like literally attacking particular judges and stuff like that? And so judges these days, I've been hearing, have been figuring out how to protect their personal safety, and I'm talking about just safety. So this is something that I'm concerned about, because Trump tends to, he's a felon, to be perfectly frank, tends to ignore the law, and we have a real fight on our hands. So that's what's going on. I want to hear your thoughts on this also, and I'll catch you on the next video.